Christopher Timothy has been a familiar face on stage and on screen since he appeared as James Herriot in All Creatures Great and Small in the late 1970s. He is currently appearing in the Cheltenham Everyman production of George Bernard Shaw's Mrs. Warren's Profession. We met for a chat in a noisy cafe during a break from rehearsals, and I suggested that the play, while not exactly obscure, is not perhaps one of Shaw's best known or most performed plays.
It isn't. When I was first asked, when it first came up, my agent said, Mrs. Warren's Profession, and my first question was, who wrote it? And I said, oh, of course, yes, of course. Then I thought of Major Barbara, which I saw at Chichester many years ago, which I thought was pretty good.
That's a good one. They're all good.
But heavy going. Then somebody said, have you done Shaw before? And my first answer was going to be no. Then I remembered we did the Apple Cart at Drama School, which I sort of remember with a modicum of affection. Then what I'd completely forgotten, I did Pygmalion in what I think was not a very good production. But when this came up, my first reaction was, oh, heavy stuff, isn't it? And very wordy and then I read it. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. And I think as long as we do it right, it won't become a tome, and it won't become, oh God, because everything that's said,
it needs the right touch.
Yeah, and it's relevant. Frighteningly so in some cases, and in some
The
areas.
thing is, don't you find that very often with these plays that had a message or social comment 50, 60, 100 years ago, that maybe that message is irrelevant and almost seems old-fashioned nowadays?
We've had these sort of conversations during the last 2 days, just reading bits and then talking and reading them. This play, if updated, would not last 2 minutes, that's for sure. But then the same applies to Hamlet, doesn't it, really? I remember members of my grandparents' generation talking much like people talk in this play. And I like hearing about them. I like seeing things that are done in period, so that the quaintness of it is fine. I mean, and can be dismissed or otherwise, but the truth of it and I love it when you feel an audience going, oh yeah, or Christ, or the recognition and the empathising with and I think the play's fab, really, really fab.
But attitudes to, I suppose the underlying thing is women's place in society, if you like, and prostitution in particular. Prostitution is viewed quite differently now than it was then. It was almost accepted more in those days, wasn't it?
That's something that came up yesterday.
That a man would have a wife for a
that had
child
not
and
crossed
family,
my mind.
But it went for sex. He went off to a tart, and it was an established way of doing things, which you don't get now. So in a way,
well, there will be more than one generation, won't there, who won't know that.
Yeah.
And they won't get it from the play either, will they? They won't.
Because I think the word prostitution is never mentioned, is it?
No. It's a bit like, I mean, maybe it isn't a bit like, but I'm going to say it anyway. We did Diary Van Frank, I don't know, 18 months ago. And one of the things that was said a lot by people who came to see it and people who were part of the production said, these things need to be known. They need the younger generation to know about this so that it doesn't happen again. What? What do you mean it doesn't happen again? Come on.
Hasn't stopped happening.
Exactly. And neither has, 95% of what he talks about, certainly the exploitation side of things.
This is the point, that people don't change. Circumstances change, mobile phones come and go.
Exactly.
But people basically don't change.
I think this. I really can't wait to do it. And if it is a dated old thing, then I'm sorry, but I don't.
No, I wasn't saying it was dated.
No, I know you didn't. But some people have said that to me. It's a bit old hat, isn't it? Well, I like that, and I feel that our director's is not going to shy of that. He's not going to try and make it palatable.
But as I said, I think in those days, Victorian times, and it was more than palatable. It was the way things were done.
Yeah.
And there were sort of brothels on every street.
But it was never talked about, was it?
No. But it was there, and everybody knew it. Now they talk about it, and it's probably not quite so prevalent.
See, I wish I'd known that when I was a young teenager, so that I could have discussed it with my grandmother.
Would your grandmother have been having
Well,
to
it would have been
discuss
tricky,
prostitution?
but he was certainly. I could have discussed it with my mother, but then my mother was born in 1915, of parents who were Victorian, weren't they?
It's true.
Just
I mean,
about.
things have changed more in the last 40 years, 50 years than they changed in the 200 years before that. But underlying human nature hasn't changed.
I've got to be honest. The biggest attraction is that I'm playing somebody who's not very nice.
Well, tell me about your character.
Well, aristocratic, a baronet, lives in the country seat. He's a very unpleasant fellow, I think. But having said that, I'm sure there are people in my family who were the same. Not that we had any aristocratic people in my family, but I remember an uncle of mine for whom I had the highest regard, and he once said to me when I was at prep school, "You go out with dancers, but you marry a lady."
Oh, absolutely.
And I was so disappointed because
marry a dancer.
at 14 I already knew what dancers were like and thought, well.
Anyway, no. Back to the play. So, I take it all. In spite of him not being a nice chap, in the end, I suppose there's some sort of redemption or whatever. No, he stays bad all the way through.
He does.
Do you like playing baddies? I mean, baddies.
I haven't
Played
played many, and I suspect it's that part of the attraction is that you can let seep out a lot of the things about me that I wouldn't tell anybody.
And blame it on him.
About me, yeah. Yeah, and I suppose as I've got older, I've found when I was young, I wanted to be Burt Lancaster, or I wanted to be swashbuckling, and this is true. When I was 25, 26 at the National, and we were recording Much Ado About Nothing, the Zephyr Radio production, for vinyl, and in the cast were Derek Jacobi, Ian McKellen,
absolutely,
Maggie Smith, Bob Stevens, Albert Finney.
Those are the days.
Oh, were they ever? And I ended up sitting in this circle of actors, from the high and the mighty to the lowliest of us, in a circle. And I happened to be sitting next to Maggie Smith because she said when we were going in, "Christopher, come and sit with me." And I was in love with her. I thought, Christ, I'm sitting next to Maggie Smith. Shit. And she wasn't yet the superstar, but she was. Very much.
Oh, she was in.
She was the total hierarchy.
Absolutely.
Without doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And very sexy and a strong woman, and said it like it was, and stood no nonsense, and was very camp. And she sat down, and at one point she suddenly said to me, what do you want to get out of this, darling? I can't do the voice now, but, what do you want to get out of this, darling? And I said, well, and I know I said it to her because it was Maggie Smith. If it had been Bob Stevens who'd asked me, I suspect I would have changed my answer. But I said, I want to walk on stage and I want every woman in the audience to go. Right? This is true. And Maggie Smith, honestly, it's true, patted me on the knee and said, no, love. When you walk on the stage, that all the women will go, ah, which is not what I wanted to hear.